our younger generation to have that acceptance, to have that growth that some people may have not have encountered when they were growing up. So, I mean, other than joining groups, getting our voices out here, being on our panels, I think the biggest thing to do is to be an educator, and that's exactly why we're here.
I would just answer that, I mean, I'm just trying to be different and demonstrate that, no, like, we're not all the same. I know there's Mexicans or there's a lot of people that there's mean or criminals or whatever, and I just want to demonstrate that we're not all the same. I mean, if you go to Mexico, you will see that there's different people over, like, all over, so I just want to demonstrate that.
Thank you, great question. So other questions from the audience? This idea of somehow, this thing we call love has a place in society and in politics, not just about myself and my significant other, my family, my children, my friend, but there's a type of love that exists in the political forum and in the social forum.
Okay.
Dr. B, please.
I have a question. It's kind of strange. Today I was listening to James Baldwin, an essay by James Baldwin, which was very moving and made me reflect in an interesting way. And I think that this forum is a chance for the first time after listening to James Baldwin to ask you guys a question that struck me because I listened to books in the car. So what we have here is, if you think about the identity, right? You've got immigrant women of color who are lesbian. That's 4 different identities.
Yep.
And in me, you see a native white male straight guy. The exact opposite. I am the political enemy. So, and what I mean by that is that, I mean, I like all you guys, but I inhabit the role of the political enemy. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're
Now, my normal response to that is F you.
Of course.
I don't count myself among the native white male straight guys who oppress other people. And yet, according to Kevin's definition, right, I'm part of the political enemy. Okay, so here's what I want to know. So once you meet a guy who's a native white male straight guy who says, look, I'm not at fault, and yet he's part of the group, right? Okay, so this is a hard question, but how am I responsible? As an individual, so am I responsible, and how am I responsible? That's what James Baldwin made me think about today, and that's why this is perfect for me.
Yes. Okay. Here's my answer, Dr. B. Yes, you have all these characteristics that would point to that, but there are more factors that play into that, like such as your personality, your specific views on this. Do you discriminate against people of color? Do you discriminate against women of color? And do you discriminate against the LGBT? Those are underlying factors of how I would approach that situation itself. I see everybody, as far as I know, at the school, as I've mentioned before, that I had no issue with anybody saying anything malice to me. So I'm okay. Everybody, I don't care if you're a white cis or anything like that. I don't care if you think that I'm going to hell or whatever. That's your opinion. But if you try to attack me and try to get me kicked out of this or try to block me from accepting or achieving my goal in life, then we have an issue. You are here as an educator, and I would hope that you do not discriminate against anybody. And if that was not the case, and you did discriminate, and I've noticed, then there would be some type of retaliation within that. It won't be a head-on, like, because there are many factors that also play into that as a student and as a professor role, but I would definitely try to be more assertive in situations. I would take a small approach to the Malcolm X, such as not backing down. I would keep butting heads with you, and so you would get the idea of where I'm coming from.
Right, but what if I said to you, Alex, I said, I know that. I'm not going to discriminate you. I don't, in fact, That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't think I do that kind of stuff, right? Or whatever. There may be some subconscious level at which I do it, but according to the definition we started with, the enemy is a certain kind of category beyond me, which means that in some way I'm implicated.
From the outside looking in.
Right, from
Yes.
a group perspective, right?
Yeah.
So from a group perspective, I have all sorts of advantages that you guys don't have.
Yeah, you do.
All sorts of advantages right away because I'm native male, white, straight. So I fit in a certain way. And what made me think about this was that when there was there was an Asian woman who I kept meeting in Starbucks, and when Trump was elected to the presidency, I said it was a bad day, but still it's not so bad. And she looked at me with terror in her eyes, and she said, "That's easy for you to say. You don't stand out."
Yeah.
Right? So, but you haven't answered my question yet, Alex. The question is, nevertheless, even though I may not individually discriminate against you in a particular way, I'm a certain kind of, how'd you call it, Kevin? An identity
Mhm.
that's beyond my individual actions, that implicates me. It's the same reason that when I walk down the street and I see a black guy at 9 o'clock after my art class walking towards me, and I look at him and he looks at me, there's a certain kind of dis-ease he has with me and I have with him. And he sees that, and I see that. Even though I might smile as a person and say, "Hey man, how's it going?" You see what I mean? We're both part of positions in society that I may have no animus toward me, and I may have no animus toward him. See what I'm getting at? So my question is,
Yes.
how do you guys deal with people in my position who are not discriminating against you, and yet how do you deal with us as a group? Because I'm already part of the enemy. Whether I participate with the enemy or not, I'm part of the enemy.
Dr. C. Of course you're not the, like your first question was, are you responsible? Of course you're not responsible because, I mean, we have a relationship built. I think all three of us know you on a more, the education level and things like that. So no, you're not responsible. However, if you choose to hold that identity and not do anything about it, not step out of that identity by, maybe getting to know that black guy that you walk past or getting to understand these different groups and having that empathy, then yeah, you are kind of responsible. Because, well, again, I don't hate you. I don't hate any white person. I mean, I date a white guy. But, I don't. But if you hold on to that injustice and you stay silent about it, then yeah, you are the enemy. And that, yeah, your silence and your lack of writing whatever is wrong, then it makes you responsible, and you have to hold that responsibility.
Okay, so then let's play it one more step. Now, shut up.
No, go ahead, please.
Well, because I'm going out this summer to Oregon,
Okay.
and I'm going to see my nephew and my sister and her husband. They're from Mississippi.
Good old Mississippi.
All right.
Okay, I'm a liberal white guy from the city.
Yeah.
They're from the city. They're from Mississippi. And not to stereotype Mississippians, but they are going. I got a problem
Okay.
because they are going to. How do I put this? Try to involve me
Mm-hmm.
in a certain kind of talk
Mm-hmm.
about Trump, about immigrants, about those gay women of color. Now listen, so what the situation is, you just told me, okay, if you shut up, Chris, you're part of the enemy. But my wife now has told me I better shut up. Because that's my family.
Yeah.
And if I start something, I'm gonna ruin the vacation for all of us. But my first impulse is to start something.
Of course. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean,
Try and bring it out as concretely as I can.
I understand. Yeah.
yes, But I think like you should always say what you think without hurting anyone. Like with respect and tolerance, you can talk about anything. Because I've been in arguments about if Trump and like people complaining and white people complaining and like everything. And I mean, you can say anything you believe because it's what you believe, but just like with respect and tolerance, I think that's key. But
And so, I mean, we've been in your class, Dr. C. You're a very outspoken
That's
person.
my problem.
And
I'm
that's,
not
so
gonna do it
it's
with
not
respect.
necessarily what you're going to say, it's probably the way you're
How
going
I'm
to
gonna
present
say
it. And I'm sure your wife understands that, because she's your
So
wife,
that's
and
why
she's
you
like,
shut me down.
I need you to bring, like, I feel like if you have that conversation, just bring it down like 10 notches, and you're good. Because you should, everyone should be able to have that conversation, everybody. But if they don't want to receive that, then you know what you're dealing with. If you're trying to have an open conversation where you're dealing with politics or whatever it is that you're with your own family, this is your family. Everyone should be able to be open. Now, if they take it and they shut off to what you're saying, then why even continue that conversation? Because how can you really break that? Now, if they were in your class, go at it. Keep hitting at them
That's my
until
job.
you get just a little bit of that crack.
That's your professional job.
Exactly, till you get them to understand. But from your wife's point of view, yeah. I mean, I've been in your class enough where I'm like, all right, Dr. C, I can see where you're gonna get everyone fired up. But again, it comes back to the whole being silent. And if you're gonna be silent in the face of injustice, you're no better than the oppressor.
Good answer.
And also to quickly add to that as well, I feel that a lot of people today get butthurt very easily, and that's the truth.
Speak up.
They don't have the capacity to see something from a different point of view. And I'm not saying you should always agree with the other person, because that's what makes change in the world. You have somebody who's different from the other. So that's natural. But if somebody gets butthurt simply because you say, oh, well, immigrants should go back to where they're from, then that person is not on the same level of intelligence as you. They lack a lot of things. That's a problem with education. Like, they don't have enough education to understand that you can talk with somebody and have different views and still be civil about it. So I'm not saying that you'll come across everybody who's going to argue and hate it and not be educated, but I'm just saying that people need to realize that you can have a conversation and not have angry words back and forth.
I'm a straight white male, pal. So
Yeah,
you stop talking
I
about
realize
butthurt.
that, but, you know, I'm just saying that I've come across people and I'm just like, okay, I'm done talking to you, and I'm saying, okay, whatever.
I'll avoid you, that's good. I like that. I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
So allow me to add just one point of clarification, and then Professor Summers, and then Johnny. So this might also is going to help, I think, frame where we started from. So with this idea of participation and complicity, something that might actually be helpful, strangely enough, is something the Catholics say in church every Sundays. And we use the language of sin, although we don't have to be a religious person to kind of get the point here. We say, you know, in my thoughts and my words, and what I have done and what I have failed to do. So there's things in which I personally can participate in injustice, not just what I choose to do, but kind of like what I choose to refrain from doing. By not being involved, by not speaking up. Not that I'm going to be perfect, anyone's going to be perfect, but it's an entire way of being in the world as far as how it is that we either are like cooperating or not cooperating with injustice. So Professor Summers and then John.
I was just going to say, I'm really enjoying this. I was just going to say that Dr. B's going to ruin that vacation.
That family trip is done.
So, Johnny, please.
All right. So Tamika, you were talking about Hurt America,
Yeah.
sort of about how people get like easily offended if someone says something. They like try to lash back, or they just can't take words as they come and then just blow them off. Like he was talking about, he was going to see his Mississippi relatives, and he's got to resist because of his wife. I have relatives in Rensselaer, and I'm part of the people that hate Trump beyond a shadow of a doubt. Everybody in this room probably knows it. I talk about it all the time. the day he was elected, I almost cried of like sadness. You know, every day I post on Facebook, and then my relatives from Rensselaer, I love them. Okay, they're my family, but I'm not inviting them to my wedding. They're not. I don't want to see them. Because every time I see them, they either say something racial, they talk about how Trump is God, they talk about all these things that I cannot stand, and I just don't want to see them. I don't want to interact with them that much. You know, they don't really come to my. I haven't seen them in like 2 or 3 years, but I follow some of them on Facebook and see the things they post. I'm like, why? You know, do you characterize me as part of the butthurt America, or do you characterize me as doing the right thing?
I characterize you as doing the right thing simply because the fact that you're aware of the type of mentality that they have with not understanding why you don't like Trump or anything for that matter involving him. It's a two-way street with understanding, and when I mean butthurt, I mean somebody who can't look at the simple fact of why somebody is saying this statement or why they're expressing themselves. Simply to say, oh, well, I can't even think of an example right now, but just to say, oh, I don't like dark chocolate. Like, oh no, I'm butthurt. You don't like dark chocolate. Why? And, you know, just something as silly as that. Like, but with more magnitude to that effect. That's what I mean by getting butthurt. I completely understand where you're coming from because it's good to cut off ties. Well, not necessarily cut off ties, but to distance yourself from negative forces and any type of negative vibes that you get from somebody. For example, my sperm donor, he doesn't like me simply because of the fact that I'm gay. He said I was going to hell, said all this other type of stuff. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. That's your opinion. You don't know me, first of all, so why even say those things? I don't have any type of contact with him or that side of the family whatsoever. He talks about being a God-loving man and everything, but why are you going to pretty much practice what you preach, but go on and say I'm going to hell when you have no right to judge who I am as a person? You have no right whatsoever. You're going to hell because, oh, hey, look, you're not around, and pretty much divorce is looked down upon. So with that, I distance myself. I could say I'm butthurt, but I'm not, because I just refuse to involve myself with negative energy. I don't want to waste my time with somebody who is not going to understand my point of view or to at least recognize where I'm coming from. You recognize where your family's coming from, but you don't choose to argue with it because it's like beating a dead horse in the head with a stick. So that's completely understandable. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Please.
Being a first generation American here, you know, my mother and father both from Africa, my mother being from Ghana, my father being from Nigeria. As a child growing up, you know what I'm saying, not only have I experienced this discrimination as far as a sense of me being a black African American, but being an African American nonetheless, you know. So now on top of being called the N-word, I also been called African booty scratcher, I also been called being a spirit trucker, you know what I'm saying? People speaking to me in cliques, presuming that I would understand. For the youth growing up, as we saw the election being held, you know, you saw the type of influence that Trump had, you know what I'm saying, invoking so much emotion from both sides, you know what I'm saying. You see that it has some sort of influence when it comes to the youth. Kids in high school, you know what I'm saying, kids in middle school, so on and so forth, you know, and see the level of hate that seems to be brought upon the minorities, you know, growing up, you know what I'm saying, within that environment. For the victims, how would you tell them, or how do you explain to them how to deal with that atmosphere, you know what I'm saying, that atmosphere of hate being thrown upon them, especially now since he's the president, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of people felt like, quote unquote, they won. Okay? How would you explain to the youth growing up, you know, in high school, in junior high, in elementary school, you know, how to deal with somebody who was spewing that negative energy towards them?
Okay. Well, let's look at it like this. I don't know how old you are. When you were growing up, how often did you talk about politics? Did you even know who the president was when you were growing up? Probably not, right? No, I know this is nothing like, and this is where I'm coming. The youth today, I have tons of nieces and nephews. I'm gonna be a teacher. I'm around kids. Kids talk about politics more today than I've ever known kids to ever talk about politics. So that's one thing moving in the right